So I thought I'd start blogging about things that basically I'm sort of interested in, I suppose enjoy. And I think it'll be a good way for me to sort of, express myself a little bit and sort of get a few things off my chest. But one of the things I wanted to start talking about is, one of the passions of mine is the mind. And again, something I became sort of fascinated with when I started university. And, well, I'll tell a story how I ended up there in the first place. So quite an interesting one, actually. So I used to be an apprentice crane mechanic a long time ago, and to be honest, it's something I didn't really want to do, really. I think one of my main focuses was I wanted to play football, really, and so I wanted to stay around the area that I grew up. And this is exactly how it happened. So me and my friend went to college. It was like an open day thing, and my friend Jordan, he was looking at the course, and he just looked at that one. He said, "Oh, you get paid for this one, Johnny." I went, "That'll do." And naively, that's what happened, and I started this course at college. And to be honest, I actually really enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed the group camaraderie in the sort of mechanical engineering, and I did enjoy it for a year. But then in sort of the second year, you had to go and to work 4 days and sort of go to college 1 day a week. And it was all right. You weren't getting paid much or whatever, and to be honest, you couldn't really, because you weren't qualified, you couldn't really do much. So, weren't the best, but the group I was working with, they were decent people, but to be honest, I was probably bullied a bit, to be honest. And anyway, I felt like I had to stick it out, so I stuck it out was getting on for nearly a year, this job. And I think everything one came to a bit of a head, and me and my mentor, I won't mention any names, but Dan, I'm only joking, I like Dan, he's a really decent bloke, but I think it's just what tipped me over, really. But anyway, he kind of locked me in not a cupboard, it was like we had a little scuffle, we got locked in like a tool thing, basically. Full on Harry Potter. And and anyway, it wasn't as bad as it sounds, but it let me on that kind of, it was the last straw for me. I was like, I obviously wasn't happy doing it. So I just went home, and I think I got on the Carlsbergs, and I looked at some university courses, and just the same as I did with the college course. So I was reading through the first one I read for Liverpool John Moores University. It was an outdoor education degree, and it's hit a load of fancy words at me like kayaking and sort of all these adventure stuff, and I went, that'll do. And I already had quite a lot of UCAS points, and I applied for it, and literally 2 days later, I think it was, or a day and a half, something like that, I got an unconditional offer. So I think this was in the August, so like mid-August, and I went, nice one, I'll have that. Accepted, put my notice in straight away, and 2 weeks later I was at the Freshers in Liverpool, and that's exactly how it happened. And after the first 2 years, I probably felt I was probably on the wrong course, to be honest, which I was. It wasn't really my thing, sort of the outdoor thing. I sort of obviously tried it, and I enjoyed parts of it, but obviously the people I tried to get on with them and things like that. There was some good people there, but it just really wasn't sort of for me. But one of the things that was for me was the dissertations, because you could choose whatever you wanted to do. And the thing I chose to do the dissertation on was depression in sport. I'm not quite sure now, thinking about why I actually chose that. But I did anyway, and it really sparked an interest in me. And so I started looking into it, and so there was people like Gary Speed, and who had killed himself and things like that. Thinking, why? There's got to be some form of reason or whatever, I don't know. And so I started to looking into depression, sort of, and what it was, and sort of, and how it came about. And I found out things about the sort of the mind and the brain that just fascinated me, and sort of started reading more about it, and it sort of continued for years and years now. Then some of the things I've learned. So, for example, we have sort of chemicals that are released when we feel good, called serotonin and dopamine. And what happens is when you for example, we go for a run, and that usually you get a release of dopamine or serotonin at some point. through that. So anyway, so you get this release, and what happens is the brain will send a message, and I like to call it the postman. The postman has this delivery of serotonin and dopamine, and it takes it to where it needs to be, and it delivers it and goes thank you, and you feel good. And in my opinion, we're kind of really addicted to that. So if you think about it, it is a drug. So whatever you do in your life, your hobby or whatever, you get a release of serotonin and dopamine, and that's why you repeat doing it. That's why you keep doing what you're doing. And it's the same, works unfortunately the same way in a negative way. Same as drugs, exactly the same as drugs. You get a big high, wouldn't you? And you want that high again, so you repeat the same behaviour. And what happens with people in depression, what I found was you have a thing called a synaptic junction. So that's just a fancy word for saying like a door. Basically, I look at it like a door. Basically, the serotonin and dopamine, the postman will knock on the door, try and deliver it where it needs to be. But in the synaptic junction in depression, that door's closed, or it's very, very small. And what people who take sort of antidepressants and things like that is their drugs are designed to sort of open the synaptic junction up to let the message go through again, or to open the door, however you want to put it. Like I say, I'll try and simplify things if I can. Anyway, yeah, so it all spiralled from there, me looking into sort of the mind and sort of becoming interested in it. And it followed on from there, and he ended up stumbling across a person called John Kehoe, and he's one of the teachers, I guess, of the mind, and there's plenty of them, and how to use mind power and sort of how to use it to your advantage and how powerful it could be. And so from sort of learning about the brain, I then went on to the mind, and it really did amaze me. And some of the things I found out, I've continued to use for maybe 10 years now, and I think they do work. They've worked for me. They obviously might not work for you. I think it's horses for courses and things like that, but some of the concepts I'll talk about, again, some things I think should be taught in school, really. And I try to do a simplified version for some of the schools that I work in. And if some of the people knew sort of this information, it could obviously make them a lot happier and could save, the NHS a lot of money and things like that. I think it's really, really important. So anyway, the major concept sort of that got to me was basically we have like two minds and two sets of thoughts, really. So you've got your conscious mind, which is where you think yourself, so you're putting your thoughts in. So for example, you could do that now if you wanted to. So I could say the word banana hammock, for example, in my head. I could say that 10 times, and I know that's me, that's what I'm saying. But a lot of the time we're in autopilot mode, so we're sort of daydreaming, basically, is what it is. So for example, if you think back to when you're maybe driving your car and you've been on a 20-minute journey, and before you know it, you're there, and you don't know how you got there. You've been daydreaming, and during that period you've been thinking, but you just haven't realised or honed in or focused on the fact that you're thinking. And a lot of the time we're having completely useless thought, loads of nonsense flying around in your head. But sometimes what happens is you get a thought that maybe you don't want that's given to you, and you then react to it. And they say, one of the teachers, that like attracts like, which I believe, because whatever you think about, you then get similar thoughts. For example, if you were thinking that life's crap and everything like that, then you'll get more thoughts to back up the first original thought. Your mind will search, and it'll find a justification for what you've thought, and it'll make you believe it. So like attracts like, but it's the same for positive as well. So if you're thinking about all the things you're happy in your life, you get more happy memories coming in, and then you're choosing to focus on that. And then, for example, if you're thinking thoughts that aren't so productive, you feel bad, and then you get more thoughts that relate to feeling bad. You feel even worse, and then you spiral, and it starts a sort of a never-ending circle. And then if you don't break that circle, then eventually, unfortunately, that leads to things like depression, things like that. But the great thing is you can stop the circle, and you can use it in a positive way. And yeah, so I went on a bit on a tangent there, but yeah, you get given thoughts, and that was a hard concept to sort of understand, really. But the way it was put across was quite easy to understand. So it was called the pink elephant sort of technique, So what they did was they'd ask you to just sit in a room, nobody talk or whatever, and they'd say, right, the only rule is for 1 minute, you're not allowed to think of a pink elephant. So you can do that now, obviously. If you're listening, you just pause the podcast or whatever and think for a minute. And if you're honest with yourself, if you actually did it, the chances are you would have thought about that pink elephant. And that just amazed me, because obviously the rule was, and you're trying deliberately not to think about it, but yet you're then obviously getting given it, aren't you? Because you can consciously think what you want, and you're consciously trying not to. So then when you're given the thought, it's, oh, wow. So there's obviously things given to me, which, again, is a hard thing to understand. But once that clicked inside me, that your mind, you're not really your mind. A lot of the time you are given things, you're given ideas, for example. You're given suggestions from your mind. A lot of it's useless, and there's a lot of it's some good and some absolutely awful. But it's getting control of that mind, the things that are given to you, and choosing whether you react to it or not. So that was the major important thing, is your reaction. So that's the one thing you can control. So if you're given a thought that you don't want, you don't like, you can control whether you react to it or not. And if you do react to it, then that gives that thought, that emotion, that visualization, whatever it is, the power, and then it'll continue to get more powerful. So for example, if you thought today is going to be a rubbish day, you had a thought given to you that it's going to be a rubbish day, and you sort of reacted to it, you were like, oh, it give you a bit of a anxiety spike or whatever, and you get more thoughts. Yeah, it's going to be rubbish, I'm not looking forward to this, this is going to be awful, this is going to happen, or blah, blah, blah. Then it spirals, doesn't it? It given more and more and more. So what you need to do, and what the sort of teaching you to do, is to, first of all, recognise when you're having thoughts that are given to you. And you can do that by sort of just stopping yourself occasionally and just asking yourself, well, what am I thinking about right now? And then you stopped it, so you know that you're you now, basically, and you're thinking. And the teach through, so it's like meditation, basically. So you sat there, and the teacher's like, they call it watching sort of clouds in the sky go by, like your thoughts, and just notice what's happening. And it's so powerful once you get that, because you can you're like, what on earth's going on? Like, there's so much nonsense going on, like flying around. And that's what's happening a lot of the time. You're getting useless stuff given to you, and being able to control that reaction is so powerful. So once you've sort of got the concept of, you realise that you're given thoughts, and you can then sort of control your reaction, you control the negatives, basically. So obviously you don't really want negative stuff coming into your head, really, because all that's going to do, again, is going to make you react and make you feel bad, and it's just no good, is it? So you want to try and make it as positive as possible. So being able to recognise the negatives and the thoughts you don't want, and then being able to use certain techniques on them to take away the power. So the techniques you can use, so again, first of all, recognising it, and the first technique is acknowledging it and just sort of label it. So you might get a thought of saying today's going to be a rubbish day, and you go, oh, there's the mind again. It's just given me a negative thought. And what you've done is you sort of put a bit of distance between it. So you've acknowledged it's no longer you, it's something else. It's the mind, or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of time in sports psychology, they refer this to the mind monkey. Or the chimp. That's the chimp, the famous one they use in sports psychology, because this will happen a lot in performance and sports anxiety and things like that, where you get thoughts or whatever, and they know he's right, that's the mind monkey, that's the chimp, or whatever it is. And then they use these techniques to deal with it. So they acknowledge it, they label it as just the chimp, bore off, or whatever they want to do. And you can use another one, which is a ridiculous technique. So again, what you do is you, first of all, acknowledge it. You go, oh, negative thought, here we go. How do I deal with this? And you go, right, I'll use this technique on it. And you use the ridiculous technique, where you change the thought that you've been given, and you change it into ridiculousness. So I'll say that again. Couldn't say that 3 times. Ridiculousness. Anyway, so you might have the thought that today's going to be a rubbish day. You might, you go, right, yeah, it is going to be a rubbish day. As soon as I get to work or whatever, my pants are going to get pulled down. I'm going to fall off the stage. There's going to be a clown come out the cupboard and throw a water bomb at me, and I'm going to do a cartwheel. I'm going to accidentally fall and break my back. Just complete, as you see, just complete ridiculousness. And before you know it, it's took away its power. It's like, oh, your mind goes, oh, don't be so silly. And then because you haven't focused on it, you haven't focused on the negative part of it, and you've sort of played around with it, really, kind of showed it who's boss, it just diminishes. It's a lot less powerful than what it would have been, and then you find yourself moving on really quickly. And again, it doesn't happen straight away. You might still react sometimes to certain things, but with practice and whatever technique works best for you, it becomes quite second nature, and before you know it, what I do now is the mind it's always going to happen. It never goes away. The mind's always there, and it's always trying to trick you. It's always trying to do certain things, but because it's just not powerful anymore in terms of trying to make you react. So I'm to the stage now where I get something. I think I've got one with I had it for a bit with locking doors, and it always used to try and wind me up and go, "Have you locked it? You locked it? Oh, wind me up chronic." So I'm kind of at the stage now. I'm pretty much over that one, really. And it says, "Oh, did you lock it?" And I just go bore off mine. But because I'd sort of used technique so many times, it just became sort of second nature to me. Another technique you can use is the opposite technique. So when the thought comes in, you can you just repeat the thought with the opposite. So say if you're a salesperson or something, and the thought comes in, "I'm rubbish, I'm not going to make a sale today," you go, "I am going to make a sale today. I am going to make a sale today." You just repeat that, repeat it, and again, it takes away its power. And it's really whatever works for you. You do a mixture of techniques or whatever, and there's probably a few more on there, but those are the ones that I've sort of resonated with and sort of used the past sort of 10 years or whatever, and this definitely worked for me. Again, it might work for you, whatever. Why don't try them out? Anyway, so I went on to learn about that, and it goes into a thing called about the law of attraction, and it's an interesting theory. Whether or not I fully sort of believe in it, I'm not sure, but I think the concept of it is I think it's a much better way of living your life. So basically, I think John Kehoe, the person I mentioned before, it goes into teaching about how you can sort of get anything you want out of life. Like, everyone has the power. Everyone that has the mind has the power to get whatever they want in their life. And what they have to do is they have to think about it. Yeah, that's it. Think about it in a certain way. So you have to visualise what you want. So the first thing is to know what you want. You then think about it, and you visualise it constantly, and you visualise it so clear, and you feel the feelings, how it would feel to have the thing you want. So whether it's that car or whatever it is, that house, you picture it and you visualise it, and what the basically it's saying is, once you do that and you do it with feeling and emotion, that basically attracts it into your life, which sounds a bit far-fetched. It's the first time you've sort of heard it, but once you prise more into it, there's a bit of weight behind it. Like, for example, your thoughts, they create a vibration, and that can actually be measured through, it's called quantum physics, basically, quantum dynamics or something like that anyway. And your thoughts are like a wave, a bit like radio waves, and they can become stronger and stronger and stronger. And I thought, Jesus. So if it is true, I mean, there's lots of people that swear by it. There's Conor McGregor, who's a big fan of using it, Jamie Moore, Charlie Edwards. There's lots of people that believe in it. It's like a belief system, isn't it? But what a great belief system, because if you're constantly thinking about what you want and thinking about changing negatives to positives or whatever, you're constantly feeling a lot better. So surely that's a much better way of living your life than just living in negativity, I suppose, or just not being aware of it. And yeah, so that's basically what the law of attraction is. Like I say, first of all, the hardest part, which is working out what you want in your life, visualising it clearly, a clear picture with sort of feeling and an emotion, and eventually the circumstances, the situations will attract it into your life. I mean, I assume you have to put steps towards it, but apparently that's it. That's what you do, and you have belief in it, just like you have. It's like people believe in God or whatever. They believe in something that they can't prove, that they can't see. So, for example, the Earth, for example, it's we believe that the Earth is sort of round, sort of spins on its axis, or whatever. It's something we can't see, we can't prove, but we heart-wholly believe it, and that's kind of what religion is, I suppose. It's sort of you put in your belief, your trust in something, and I guess it's a powerful thing to have. I mean, again, I'm not 100% sold on it, but I 100% believe that it's a better way to live your life. And that's pretty much it, really. It's a good way of looking at things. But yeah, so I could probably gone off a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, so I'll probably do some more things on the mind and sort of things I've learned or whatever, and things passionate about. I guess my mind just got a bit blank there in the end, but hopefully it's come across I guess a little bit interesting. Maybe some people who haven't come across these concepts before will look into it more, or sort of I'm happy to discuss them as well. It's something I love talking about. I love talking about the mind. I love talking about how you can use the mind as a tool to sort of things like that. And if that's something you're interested in or want to learn more about, please reach out or whatever message, things. And I'd love to sort of talk to you about it. And thanks for listening and all that. And till next time.